So welcome to today. Welcome to today, which in relative language or relative time is the 18th of May, 2024. It's Saturday. And I'm zooming in from Wujib country on the Bundjalung Nation, otherwise known as Lismore, Northern New South Wales, Australia. So this morning, the theme is waking up, but that's the theme of all of Buddhism, actually. I mean, as I'll explain in the talk that I'll give at 11 o'clock, Australian Eastern Standard Time, Bud means awake, and the Buddha means awakened one. And Buddhism, if there is such a term, means the ism of awakenism. You could say awakenism. So the theme of today is awakening, and I'll probably guide in two meditations. One meditation will be around the theme of the Brahma Viharas, the divine abodes, loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. They're the four divine abodes. But this one, it'll be sort of like I've learnt from Stephen Snyder, who's a Zen teacher, and also how I've learned from Mahayana Buddhism, and also a practice called tong. So what I'll invite you to do is access warm benevolence or unconditional, positive, warm regard within your heart, and from there absorb into it, but also open up to it as being from what is seemingly external to us. So I invite you to find that space of the Buddha's heart, basically, or if you want to put it in other language, the love of God, whatever it is for you. And then from that space, whenever you have suffering arise, you can just put it into that space. And in Tonglen's a Mahayana Buddhist meditation practice. It's about compassion. The way they teach Tonglen traditionally is breathing in the suffering of the world and then transforming it in your heart, and then breathing out loving kindness and compassion. And when I first learned that practice about 50 years ago, or 49 years ago, I learned it from Lama Zopa and Lama Yeshe on a retreat I was doing with them, Tibetan Buddhist Lamas. There was a bit of, I was only 19 and I was a little bit confused about what to do with that. And they said, breathe in the suffering in the world. I thought, oh my goodness me, I don't know if I can cope with that. And then they also said, be careful about how you do this particular practice because it can be dangerous. You don't want to breathe in negative energies and hold on to them. So I decided I didn't want to do it. That was back in 1975 or 1976, something like that. So fast forward about 30 years, I was on a retreat with Alan Wallace, and it was a shamatha and four immeasurables retreat, which was a wonderful retreat. Basically, shamatha means the serenity practices, and the four immeasurables are the way the Mahayana Buddhists described the four divine abodes. So we were doing this practice, and then Alan introduced Tonglen. I thought, oh, here we go. And but the way he introduced it, the way he described it was to develop the heart of the Buddha. You can be around here if you want, or it can be somewhere, and then breathe into that heart of the Buddha all your suffering. So I wasn't into the breathing then either. I mean, I couldn't kind of work with breathing. So what I did was I just let all my suffering go into this well. It was like, it's like a well of unconditional love. You just kind of allow it to go into that. And it kind of gets transformed. So yeah, in other language, in other ways of looking at it, you become aware of what your hooks are, your suffering, your particular types of dukkha. And in the awareness, you kind of let it go. And you let it go into this heart of the Buddha. So you release it. And then what results from that is loving kindness, and you can breathe it out. So I did that practice, and I noticed that it was really powerful. It was a really useful way for me to kind of let go of my particular tendencies. And as I've practiced that in other years, that retreat was about 15 years ago, I think. But as I've practiced that particular practice in my clinical practice as a clinical psychologist, I noticed that I would start to breathe in the suffering of my clients and then just kind of put it in. I wasn't taking it inside into this personal heart, but I was taking it in, putting it into the heart of the Buddha, this all pervasive loving kindness and compassion that is just kind of totally accepting, completely unbiased and non-judgmental, just completely receptive, and it gets transformed. So I noticed that actually had an effect on me and my relationships with the clients, and I think also the clients. I don't want to be too magical about how I think about that. So the first meditation I'll invite you to do is somehow create that, somehow access that sense of unconditional love. And whenever you have any ego resistances or ego performances, or whatever it is in terms of your dukkha, you just let it go into it. You let it go into it. And it's like this emptying, and what's left is kind of a clean, pure, awakened heart. Okay, so that's the first meditation. And the second meditation, and I apologize for anybody new to Buddhism about this, because I'm going to be teaching well, not teaching, I'm inviting you to practice probably one of the most advanced meditations there is, in my view. And that's aligned with a particular sutta in Buddhism called the Bahia Sutta, which is a story about Bahia, who wanted to get the essence of the teachings from the Buddha. And he kind of, I won't go into the big story about Bahia, but in essence, he tracked the Buddha down while the Buddha was going on alms round. And the Buddha said to him, he saw him and he said, "Give me the essence of the teaching, please." And the Buddha said, "Not right now, I'm on alms round. I'm in a village doing alms round later. I'm in a busy marketplace," for example. He was going alms round in a village, and Bahia said, no, please, now. You never know when you may die or I may die. This is really important. I need to have it now. And the Buddha knew he was right. So the Buddha gave him the essence of the teachings. And I can't read it because it's not in front of me right now, but what I know he said, but the essence of this teaching is, train yourself this way, Bahia. In the seen, there is just the seen. In the heard, there is just the heard. In the felt, the somatic bodily experience, there's just the bodily experience. In the cognized, there's just the cognized. When Bahia, you can see that in the seen, there's just the seen. In the heard, there's just the heard. In the cognized, there's just the cognized. Then Bahia, you'll neither be here nor there or anywhere in between. This Bahia is the end of suffering. So that's the essence of it. And I apologize if I haven't cited it correctly, but I mean, it's a little bit more elaborate than that. But in essence, it's about being with experience completely, sort of prior to conceptualizing about experience. So in many respects, that's the Buddha's perspective. It's a perspective of being with experience prior to adding our concepts about experience. And some of you have heard me talk about nimittas. nimitta in early Buddhist language refers to the way we recognize something, our concept about something, our perceptions about something. So it's prior to that. It's with the raw experience. And when you're with the raw experience, there's no conceptualizing. And, this self that, mostly this self that we call a self, that which we call a self is mostly a conceptual fantasy, really, not a fantasy, a fiction. That's how they describe it. So when you see that there's just this. There's just this. There's nothing more than this. There's no a big story. And that is freedom. So that I'll invite you to that meditation. And essentially, it is about hovering with awareness. You're not kind of resting in awareness. You're not kind of falling back into awareness, because that's almost dualistic. And you're not kind of going into anything. It's a very undirected meditation in that respect. You're neither going in or back. You're not doing anything other than kind of hovering with awareness. And whenever concepts come up, you drop them. You'll notice concepts. If you can hover with that bare awareness, fantastic. But most likely you'll notice concepts about things coming up. And it's just the process of dropping it. When you do that practice, what one begins to realize is that this world that we call, solid and real, like, you guys are really in Perth and Adelaide and, Sydney and Rockhampton and Tasmania. I mean, that's my world. I'm creating that world. What we see is the world is a mental fabrication, and this is it's a kind of a mystery of how every individual has a completely different world that they're projecting out there and interpreting. And in some mysterious way, there's a consensus of our worlds in some ways. Like we're having a consensus of our realities right now, in that you're in your various places in my mind, and I'm talking to you people. But in fact, when we cut to the core of the raw experience, there's just this and mental projections. So anyway, I apologize if that's going too advanced for you, and I apologize for anybody who's just being new to Buddhism, because you've come to the essence of it. Sorry, I hope it's not too overwhelming. Maybe you'll wake up with hearing that. Maybe you'll wake up like Bahia woke up. And by the way, Bahia did wake up after hearing those words. Look, a quick outline for the day. As usual, we have our introductions and greetings and instructions up to about 9:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. And also, Sydney time and Melbourne time and Queensland time and Tasmania time, I think. What we do now is I'll invite you to 2 guided meditations. The first one will be, as I've explained, something aligned with, I guess you could call it Tonglen meditation, but it's a bit of a mix of various different approaches. And then I'll invite you to that, and then we'll be in silence for a while. Then I'll invite you to a second meditation, and the second meditation will be Bahia's meditation. Basically, it's not even resting in awareness, it's just hovering. It's just hovering with that, not buying into our conceptual realities. And then we'll probably have another silent meditation. And then at 20 to 11 my time, we'll have a break for tea, or here's it, morning tea, biscuits, whatever you want to do. And also feel welcome to go to the loo and move around as you need. Then at 11 o'clock, we come back, we have a Dharma talk, and I've prepared a Dharma talk. I've got some notes anyway. Sometimes I read my notes, sometimes I just go off ad lib. Whatever, it's about awakening, and looking at awakening from a couple of different perspectives, including the traditional Theravadan Buddhist perspective. And then after that, we usually have a bit of discussion about the Dharma talk or the content of the Dharma talk or something like that. And if we don't, we have another meditation. I'm not sure what we do after that. We could just kind of be present and do nothing. And then at 12:30, we have lunch for an hour. We'll break for lunch for an hour and come back at 1:30. And then there's the possibility of 2 half-hour meditations, or if you want to sit for an hour, you can have 1 hour meditation. And what we usually do with those half-hour meditations, we might want to sit for half an hour and then walk the other half an hour, and then we can return at 2:30 for the Dharma discussion, and then we finish around about 3, sometimes a little bit later. Okay. Any questions about that? All good? And I think my internet should be all right today. Sometimes we're having storms up my way, and I'm not sure about it, but it seems like it's all pretty good. Okay, so I'll just turn the recording off now, and then we'll start with another one.